Did you know that in the Middle Ages, people often trimmed their nails with small knives instead of special tools? Nail clippers simply didn't exist yet, and everyday objects had to serve many purposes. If you enjoy discovering strange and surprising facts about history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And now, we're off. In medieval Europe and many other parts of the world, personal grooming looked very different from what we know today. Nail clippers were invented only in the modern era, so people relied on small personal knives or daggers. Almost every adult carried a knife because it was a universal tool. It was used for cutting food, carving wood, repairing objects, and sometimes even for eating. When someone needed to trim their nails, they would carefully scrape or slice the edge of the nail with the blade. Wealthy people occasionally owned small grooming sets with files or delicate blades, but ordinary people simply used the knife they already carried. This detail might sound unusual today, but it shows how practical and resourceful everyday life had to be. Speaking of everyday life, another surprising fact is that medieval people were not nearly as dirty as popular culture often suggests. Many cities had public bathhouses where people could wash, relax, and socialize. These bathhouses were common in medieval Europe and even more widespread in the Islamic world. Visiting a bathhouse once a week was quite normal for many people. Soap also existed, though it was usually made from animal fat and ash, which made it rough and not very pleasant to use. Still, washing hands, face, and hair regularly was considered important. In fact, many medieval texts mention hygiene and warn about the dangers of dirt and illness. Haircuts were also a normal part of life, but the people who cut hair had a much broader job than modern barbers. Medieval barbers were often responsible not only for grooming, but also for medical procedures. A barber might trim your beard, cut your hair, pull a painful tooth, or even perform minor surgery. Because trained doctors were rare and expensive, barbers became practical medical workers for ordinary people. This is why the traditional barber pole has red and white stripes. The red symbolizes blood, while the white represents bandages used during medical treatments. Another everyday activity that worked very differently was eating. Most medieval people did not use forks. Knives and spoons were common, but forks were rare in Europe until the later medieval period. Instead, people often ate with their hands. During large meals, several people might share the same dish placed in the middle of the table. Bread played an especially interesting role. Thick slices of stale bread called trenchers were used as plates. Food such as meat, vegetables, or sauce would be placed on top of the bread. After the meal, the soaked bread was either eaten or given to poor people. This system reduced waste and allowed food to be shared more easily. Sleep habits in the Middle Ages were also surprisingly different from modern life. Today, many people try to sleep for 8 uninterrupted hours, but medieval people often slept in 2 separate phases. Historical documents describe something called the first sleep and the second sleep. People would go to bed shortly after sunset, sleep for several hours, then wake up in the middle of the night. During this quiet time, they might pray, talk with family members, read by candlelight, or even visit neighbors. After an hour or two, they would return to bed and sleep again until morning. This pattern seems unusual today, but historians believe it was very common before electric lighting changed human routines. Lighting itself was another challenge in medieval homes. At night, people relied on candles or oil lamps. Candles made from beeswax burned cleanly and smelled pleasant, but they were expensive and usually used only by wealthy households or churches. Most ordinary families used tallow candles made from animal fat. These candles burned quickly and produced a strong smell. Because light was limited and expensive, people usually finished their daily work before nightfall. Once darkness came, most activities slowed down. Clothing in the Middle Ages was much more colorful than many modern films suggest. Bright colors were especially popular among wealthy people. Dyes such as deep purple, crimson red, or rich blue were extremely expensive because they required rare materials or complicated processes. Because of this, Governments in some regions created special laws that controlled who could wear certain colors or fabrics. These laws were known as sumptuary laws. Their purpose was to show social hierarchy clearly. When someone walked through a town wearing luxurious fabrics or bright colors, everyone immediately understood that this person belonged to a wealthy or powerful class. Travel during the medieval period was also a very different experience from today. Roads were often rough, muddy, and sometimes dangerous. Bandits occasionally attacked travelers, so people usually traveled in groups whenever possible. Merchants, pilgrims, and messengers often shared routes across long distances. Along these roads, special inns or resting places allowed travelers to eat, sleep, and take care of their animals. These places became important centers where news and information spread. Travelers arriving from distant lands brought stories about wars, kings, strange inventions, and distant cultures. Medicine in medieval times was based on very different ideas from modern science. Many doctors believed in the theory of the four humors. According to this idea, the human body contained four main fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health depended on keeping these fluids in balance. When someone became sick, doctors tried to restore balance through diet changes, herbs, or treatments like bloodletting. While some methods sound strange today, medieval medicine also preserved valuable knowledge from ancient Greek and Roman scholars. Monasteries often maintained herb gardens where monks grew plants used to treat illnesses. Communication in the Middle Ages also worked very differently. Without newspapers, radio, or the internet, news spread slowly through travelers, merchants, and storytellers. Town squares and marketplaces became important centers for exchanging information. When a traveler arrived from a distant region, people gathered to hear stories about new lands, political events, or strange discoveries. Sometimes these stories changed slightly each time they were told, which meant news could become exaggerated or distorted as it spread from place to place. Daily life also included some unexpected habits related to animals. In many medieval towns, animals lived very close to people. Chickens, pigs, and goats sometimes wandered through streets. Cats were valued for controlling mice, especially in homes and storage areas where grain was kept. Dogs served as guards or hunting companions. Life was closely connected to animals because they were essential for food, transportation, and protection. Education was another fascinating aspect of medieval society. While most ordinary people could not read, centers of learning existed in monasteries and early universities. Monks spent long hours copying books by hand because printing presses had not yet been invented. Creating a single book could take months or even years. Because of this effort, books were extremely valuable and often decorated with beautiful illustrations known as illuminated manuscripts. Even entertainment looked different from modern life. Without television or digital media, people relied on storytelling, music, and festivals for entertainment. Traveling performers moved from town to town singing songs, performing tricks, or telling epic stories about heroes and battles. Seasonal festivals also played an important role in medieval culture. These events brought communities together with music, dancing, games, and large shared meals. When we look closely at these small details, medieval life becomes much more vivid and interesting. The people of that time faced challenges very different from ours, yet they also developed clever solutions to everyday problems. From trimming nails with knives to sleeping in two separate phases and using bread as plates, many ordinary habits reveal a world that was both strange and surprisingly practical. And now a question for you. Which of these medieval facts surprised you the most? Was it the way people cut their nails, their unusual sleeping patterns, or the fact that barbers once acted as surgeons? Write your answer in the comments below. It would be fascinating to hear your thoughts and discuss which parts of medieval life seem the most surprising today.